Hi everyone, I am in black. Why? Because I'm going to speak about Springbank, one of my 10 favorite all-time and worldwide wise distilleries and of Scotland in particular. Now, that said, I'm a bit late, as often these last weeks, or forget it, apologize, but so I'm not gonna do today a rundown. It is planned because I have around 18 or something like that, almost 20 references if you cross HAZELBURN, Longrow and Springbank in my collection. This is not much, but this is enough. Well, this is quite interesting. There are not even all there on display. I put just some of them. When I will do a Springbank rundown, I will most probably have one or two more recent expressions. I do not have expressions from the 3 or 4 last years, unfortunately, except probably this, which is from 2019. Yes, it's the most recent I have. This is how now Springbank looks like. The few years ago, this is how it looked like, and even further away you have the cream label over here in early 2000s, right? So this is just to show you the evolution of the packaging. Now, so I'm going to just introduce you very quickly the Springbank distillery. There are a lot of things on my website already, and I will do something more ambitious maybe in the rundown. Today I will just show you what I'll compare. Before starting, I will compare those two, which is two different brands from the Springbank distillery, but they're distilled in the same stills, not exactly the same way. I will explain you a bit about that. But there are what was interesting is there are two expressions of the same age, 9 years old, and two expressions with almost the same finish. I said almost because one is first fill and the other is refill. In Italian wine, Barolo wine finish, right? So, and I will explain you a bit more about the bottles, the bottlings that you might still be able to find in auctions or secondary market. I hope not too expensive, probably not so much. The HAZELBURN, I found it quite recently. It was on dusting on some shelves. I had it for €82, which was kind of miracle. Earlier on this year, while the Springbank, I had it for 105, and it was in 2016, and it was also dusting because the Springbank was bottled in 2013. While this HAZELBURN is bottled in 2015, 16. Oh, and then a mistake again. 16, October 16. Right. So this is quite complex, and I am partly unprepared, so I'm gonna rely on some notes and books and stuff. I'm sorry. Springbank distillery, yes, family owned by the G&A Mitchell for the Springbank Distillers Company, independent family owned, which has this distillery from and I forgot, Campbeltown. So we have the west of Scotland here, and Campbeltown is there and Springbank is there. All this is the Mull of Kintyre, the presqu'île de Campbeltown en français, and here is the distillery. So it's not so far from the lowlands and not so far from the other islands around. And at some point, for some indie bottlings, even you can find, and I came across one, a very intriguing, interesting one, which was which was mentioned on the label. It was an indie bottling from Douglas Lang. It was a lowland malt, so quite interesting. Otherwise, at the time, there wasn't 3 distilleries in the before Glengyle, Kilkerran. It was mentioned as a highland. Okay, so partly depends. Still, there are some which are mentioned. Campbeltown, but it was not official. Forget it. Too much details. So 1828, the foundation by the Reed family, in-laws of the Mitchells. What else? You know, the area had a lot of trouble economically. Sorry, and so the floor maltings, for instance, the distillery had to close in 1926 with the Depression. Back in production in 1933. They had their own malting floors and they had to stop it before restarting them later on, much later on. Yes, the blenders did take a lot of share of it. Often some people who are new to whiskey or new is last year don't know that they also produce I mean, G&A Mitchell, they produce also they have Cadden heads. You know that the independent bottling company, the oldest to bottle single cask, around 180 years maybe now. The oldest single cask, Scotch single cask bottling company, indie bottling company, and even not in indie anyway. OB and IB. What else can I say quickly, because it's gonna run fast. I don't want to do a long video because this means for me long upload. Yeah, you can see there the floor maltings, which is very rare in Scotland, except in the new small distilleries. This is 100% floor malting that goes on the production for the whiskies. So it's not like the 5 or 6 others in Scotland, Lafroig, Bowmore, Balvenie and others, which are almost 10, 20, 30% of their production and more. Okay, it's part of the process, but it's more something strongly marketed to show people, visitors, that it is traditional and it's craft, etc. Doesn't mean it is not, but it's not like this with 100% of the production floor malted. Here you can see the stills, but we're gonna see them. Well, I'm gonna speak about them again. Yeah, when it's I showed you the place where they it was before they put all the malt, but when it is malted it's like that. Also you can see the very long time fermentation washbacks, and yeah, something that's also a lot appreciated is the fact that everything's made on site. The bottling holes on site, labeling everything, and also they have only 3 stills. Yeah, fermentation, I forgot to say, it's in Scandinavian large, the 6 washbacks, and it's a long fermentation, 110 hours. There are 3 stills, 1 wash still and 2 spirit stills. All are pot stills, of course. The wash, it's something I didn't know because I thought it was only direct fire. No, it's fired both by an open oil fire and internal steam coils, so both. Usually it's only one of them. Direct fire is also something that's made in France in one or maybe other now new ones, but in the Glenarmor distilleries, for instance. One of my favorite as well, and not so far from Springbank in a way, in the way it is made. Springbank does three distinctive expressions. For instance, they have the 10 years old HAZELBURN, which is distilled 3 times. HAZELBURN, I don't know what maybe I need some water. Pardon me. HAZELBURN is distilled 3 times instead of 2.5 times for Springbank, and I'm going to explain that. While Longrow, and I apologize, I only have an old one, which is the CV, which is the precursor for the current just named peated, and it's almost the same. It's as good. The peated for me is as good as this one, though for this one there's an array of ages involved which is bigger, I think. Well, I know the ages there. I don't know about the peated, but I think it's 6 to 8, something like that, where there is 6 to 14. Right, so HAZELBURN distilled 3 times. This is a nice 10 years old Springbank, and I have the previous, label, distilled 2.5. Oh, I forgot to say, HAZELBURN is supposed to be unpeated, but in some you can sense something. Maybe it's a barrel char, but you can sense a hint of peat somewhere. But it's supposed to be unpeated, while Springbank 10 is currently, I would say, medium peated, while in the early 2000s it was not peated at all, or it didn't show anyway. There's lots of batch variations even in the core range, and it's one of the most interesting points I think in Springbank distillery. So HAZELBURN distilled 3 times and unpeated, let's say. Springbank moderately peated. It depends on the versions and the batch variations. 2.5 times distilled, and Longrow distills only 2 times, but heavily or medium to heavily peated. Depends also. Right, I think we're on to most of the had the level of peat. They say 12 to 15 for Springbank. It's a malt whiskey yearbook, if you wonder, but I have other sources. They say 50 to 55 p.m. for Longrow, which is the equivalent of Ardbeg, the level of peat, but there are a few differences on the kiln, for instance, and also they say unpeated, but 6 hours of peat smoke for drying the malted barley and 30 hours of hot air, but Longrow requires 40 hours of peat smoke. Production in 2020 proved to be difficult due to pandemic, and only 1,000 liters were distilled. However, for 2021 they're back on 5 mashes per week, which makes almost twice production, but very low, 30,000 liters only for Longrow. That can explain, I didn't know, I hadn't time to read it honestly, the new malt whiskey yearbook. So that very decrease in production, while for the whole things, and also for the blended whiskies, which I forgot to say earlier on, they do Campbeltown Loch, and previously they had a Mitchell's 12 years old, which I used to have. Very nice blends with a high proportion of Springbank malt in it. Just to let you know, they have an Aeneas Campbeltown Loch. They have a 21 years old, and they're planning to do an intermediate age soon, as I found out. Blended whiskey. So the fact, usually it's supposed, the maximum capacity is supposed to be 7,500 Why do I mistake with numbers in English? 500,000 liters. I'm sorry. Apologies. And I'm a bit rusted, a bit tired these days. So 750 milliliters in French. So less than a million liters. So you can see if it's down to 110,000 liters, it's way less. So that's why you don't see it on the shelves. First, and the second reason is most probably the allocations per country, which depends of the distribution, the companies, their will to have more Springbank or to make people wait to have more stock. It's something that I can do nothing about that. So I can only guess that it might also differ. Oh, let me do just something, sorry. Okay, there's always something I forgot, even if I prepare things. Okay, so enough blah blah. Last thing, and it's from their website, so there's no things to be contested there. Frequently asked question: why is Springbank said to be distilled 2.5 times? Following, this is the answer from the distillery. Following fermentation, the wash is charged to the wash still where it is distilled to produce low wines, which contains 20% ABV. The low wines are then distilled a second time to produce faints, which contains 50% ABV. So up to this stage, normally it's the way every Scottish distillery works, more or less, and then they put everything. They do the cut, so the feints and the foreshots are recycled in the second still. But then, here what they say: a proportion of the low wines from the first distillation is then mixed to a proportion of feints from the second distillation, and is distilled a third time. Because some of the resulting spirit has been distilled twice and some 3 times, that's why it is said Springbank is distilled only 2.5 times. And they ended by recalling that Longrow is double distilled in the traditional Scottish manner, while HAZELBURN is triple distilled. We could add the Irish way, because it started this way in Ireland and then went back to Scotland. Another story. So there you have it. Now about what we're gonna try, because I think every time I say I don't want to be long, I'm long. I'm gonna compare this beautiful old style Springbank from the Wood Expression series with that cream white label. They've done a lot. I don't even know if it's mentioned in the Malt Whisky book. I'm almost sure this is not. Let me check. Well, some are mentioned. Well, okay, I know, so not everyone by heart, but I can tell you it started around early 2000, and they had a bourbon cask expression. Why bourbon? Because I'm gonna be long there. Springbank 10, for instance, that I have here, a closed bottle, reserve bottle, because mine is almost finished. This used to be matured in different cask types, and it varies quite often. Not only the proportion between bourbon and sherry, but also sometimes, and for instance in the bottles I forgot to bring my old cream label. This one is 100 proof, 10 years old. I have a 46% one, my last one. Some were bourbon casked only, some were bourbon and rum, because the Mitchells and Cadenhead are also importing and bottling some rum. And some mix other type of cask as well, sherry cask, or lowers of sherry cask, but also sometimes other things. Even sometimes there were a burgundy cask mixed in. which can be surprising. Now, that said, in the Wood Expression series, they did some port finish, they did some Marsala finish. I almost got it. It was a 9 years old, but and then I couldn't grab it. They did, I think they did a Madeira finish, if I'm not mistaken, or was it in the car limited edition? I'm not 100% sure. Well, so they did, and I have it, and I didn't want to saturate my table, but and they also did a Calvados wood finish, which I have, but it's closed. So when I will open it, I will review it for you. So this one, I will compare. So this is Gaja Barolo. Gaja is the domain. Barolo is a wine type. Interestingly, on the and sorry, it's super glossy, so it's very hard to show on cam, and also to take the picture. The 9 years old as well, HAZELBURN is said Barolo cask matured, which is wrong because it's a finish, so it's a bit weird. So there are two finishes, but or we can say, I think, double matured is the correct word, because there are very long finishes compared to the final age of the whiskey. But this one doesn't say Gaja anywhere, even in the back label. So 6 years for the HAZELBURN. This says 6 years in first fill bourbon barrels, 3 years in refill, which is not the case here. Barolo wine hogsheads, so another difference. Hogshead is partly reconstituted cask, adding new staves for the one which were broken or leaking or things like that. It's distilled in June 2007. I will put the details in the description, and bottled in October 2018 with an outturn of 10,800 bottles. It is 57.9 ABV, and as usual, non-chill filtered, non-colored, as everything coming from this distillery. This one, it's a 9 years old with 4 years in Refill Bourbon casks, and 5 years, which is longer probably. Yeah, 2 years longer. In fresh means first fill, guys. Gaja Barolo casks, doesn't say which cask type, but we can assume it is ex-bourbon barrel or ex-European cask. We don't know. I never found out the info, to be honest. And what else to say? The outturn. Is the outturn here? Yes, 111,000 bottles. So this one was distilled February 2004 and bottled October 2013. Right. And this is a very strange case for this one, because you can see my notes for the HAZELBURN. Now see my notes for the... There's nothing. I couldn't manage to... So I tried it 3 or 4 times. So and I gave some samples already. So I think I can speak about it, of course. And I will give you approximative rates only for the Springbank, because once again I didn't take any notes, but I like it a lot. Anyway, enough talking. Once again, when I say don't want to be long, I'm always long. I will start, even if it's not super fair, with the lower ABV of the two. So 54, did I say it? 54.7 compared to 57.9. And even it's... Okay, I don't want a bottle to break, because it's hard to find, even if what I said before. And it would be way more expensive if I found it now than before, well, at least twice. Here is the color. I have a white sheet. Look at this. I know it changes every time. It depends where I put towards the camera. You see, it changes immediately. But you can see it's kind of a light mahogany color, deep amber, whatever. Mahogany, well, it's not acajou, but it's rich color, and it's exactly what it looks like. That is, for me, liquid pastry. Spoiler. On the nose. It is a nose to die for, so I have to. Yeah, I didn't speak about local barley because I am gonna speak about it at some point, because I have only one, but it's not the worst one, I think. Let's see if I can add a few, at least numbers instead of notes. This is, for me, quintessential pastry-oriented whiskey. So, for those who were expecting red wine notes, it's a red wine from Italy, Barolo. You don't find them. You find a combination with something extremely malted barley, even some roasted, chocolatey, milk chocolate, coffee, milk coffee, or cafe latte, things like that. Then you have that beautiful, don't know if the word is Hessian in English. There's a beautiful combination of some noble nuts, like I say, macadamia, pecan nuts, cashew nuts, even. Everything's crushed and in a kind of paste. There's also some almond paste and some dark chocolate, almost not pudding, but something rich and dark. And I still have this crazy note of black halva, like I say, halva noir, which is some kind of, I think the name is hard to get, but it's a rather it's cacahuete. I think it's I forgot. Well, let's say some kind of nuts, peanuts. Sorry, some kind of peanuts, chocolate, butter, and peanuts cake from Greece, which is to die for. Very rich and very hard to find other than in Thessaloniki, the town where my mother was born. Long story, long memories. Then on top of that, just coming from behind to wrap it up, in case you wonder if it was Springbank, the funk, the greasiness, the motor oil, the diesel, and the not dusty but earthy smoke, everything like that. It's soft, but it comes to like insinuations in French, I don't know. They penetrate the pastry and start to flavor it, but it's not overpowering. It's super balanced. I don't know if all this makes sense. Oh, I love that nose. It's crazy. I had this. I offered a sample to Frederick and Emil from A Drum Divided. Cheers, my friends. And we did a live show in which this one was. I may put a link. Yeah, I'm gonna put a link where this one was tasted as well, among other things from my collection. Check it out, because you have two other people's notes. Well, this is, I can stay half an hour on the nose, so I'm gonna move on. And also, I haven't tried the second one. Let's do something. I'm gonna nose the other one before tasting, and I'm gonna taste each one, and then I'm gonna taste in comparison. So let me just now nose the one with a less long finish and less long, probably with less influence of the barrel. Whoops. Hope it stands again. Okay, this one I waited a bit under the neck pour. It still struggles to open up, and it's my main complaint about it. Also, it's way less pastry oriented. But it's getting to open up, so I said, okay, let's maybe try the review. Because I'm in letter B in my journey on YouTube video, even if I already covered whiskies from other letters of the alphabet. So if I want to speak about Talisker, Springbank, and Yoichi, which are three of my favorite distilleries, if I wait 2 or 5 years, I will be frustrated, maybe you as well. So I had to do a Springbank at a moment before next year. This one, the peat smoke is coming across on the nose, less important, but more integrated in some oaky and spicy profile. It's not really wine influence, or in tannins I can feel of the oaky side. So you know, tannins can come from the oak, but they also can come from the wine. Two different things, and there it's a bit combined. Yeah, there's some malted barley, typical Springbank signature coming on, but it's subdued, and there's something like more. I really struggle to define it. There's something more about the grain itself, which is crushed to produce the grist. It's more gristy than yeasty and caramelish in the other, if it makes sense. So it's more HAZELBURN than Springbank, which is logical. But what I mean by that, it's the influence of the wine seems different and more oaky than fruity, if it makes sense. Even if it's dark fruits and stuff like that. And so I still have the slight solventy note. No, almost, yeah, half solventy, half sherried, even if there's no sherry, so it must be the wine influence there. There's also more alcohol, so I gotta be careful on the nose, on the length of nosing. Beware. Okay, some not really varnish, but everything is super melted, so it's hard to. Okay, so if I had to sum up, nice nose, but way less appealing than the Springbank. Okay, let's put this back. Focus for now on the Springbank. The peat comes across now more, as I didn't want to cup them because the HAZELBURN need to oxygenate a lot, and this one not so much, but I want to give the same treatment to the two. Okay, now on the palate, Slangeva. hallelujah, hallelujah. Oh my God. Oh. Now what can I say? What else can I say? Oh, it's a super treat. It's fucking good, Springbank, sorry. Oh my God. So it has everything we like in Springbank, for those who like it. And everything is like this, married perfectly together. This is a stunning expression, honestly. I'm gonna heighten the note. The score is gonna be very high, but I might pause to calculate it later on. Yeah, so to give you this pastry thing coming across like different layers of chocolate, dark but more milk chocolate, and also some kind of Swiss chocolate, which is half of the two, if I remember well. Some also fudge coming across very strong. I'm gonna put my notes in English, which is rare, directly. I think, if I remember well, or you can, did Fred quoted that, but now I got it myself, baklava, which is oriental pastry as well, with some nuts, some sugar syrup. It's very rich. Oh my God. Okay, so if it's a liquid oriental pastry whiskey. If you like that. Also, gotta be honest, slight bitterness from the oak, but it disappears quickly. And it also comes from, in my opinion, might come from the wine or all the malt, but it also comes from the peat, which is a bit ashy. Well, not exactly ashy, earthy. I'd say half ashy, half earthy, and drying. It dries more on the other one, but it's a bit drying on the finish. It's also herbal. Sometimes we forget that it can be a bit green. There's some mushroomy, some mushrooms coming on now. So some tertiary elements. There's some dried fruits, figs, dates, raisins. It's super complex. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able in a short video to find out everything about it. When I mean short video, I mean video. Okay, I'm gonna try now the HAZELBURN neat, and then try both with a bit of water. Hope you didn't have that on. What did I say? Yeah, HAZELBURN. There you go. I forgot to show the color of the HAZELBURN, right? So it's a bit coming across a bit lighter, but of course, as usual, the more volume you have in the glass, in the bottle, I mean, the more dumpy and wide it is, the darker the color will be compared to the glass. Except you have a big glass. Okay, let's go on the palate. This is less spectacular. I would dare to say less interesting and different. It's more tannic, it's more dry. There's the what we like in HAZELBURN, which is more subtle. Some don't like even the 10 years old, which I like. The profile, it's more tight. It's less malty, which is quite paradoxical, but triple distillation is supposed to make things more subtle and more I don't know, it depends. But my guess, it's just a guess before I say I go on further, is that HAZELBURN doesn't handle a lot well wine, sherry, etc. finishes. I know some disagree. I tried a 13 years old Oroso sherry, which is nice, but for me it was not HAZELBURN a lot. For me it's bourbon. Refill Bourbon suits probably the most, and Refill, some different kind of barrels, suits the most to the HAZELBURN style. But it's just my opinion, and it's a partial, I mean, under reservation opinion, because I haven't tried everything they did. Maybe a dozen once, that's all. While I tried a lot, I think 50 or different, or more, 80, don't remember, different expressions from Springbank. Okay. It's something that sticks to the palate more, with more spices, ginger, not really ginger, some black pepper maybe, maybe also some, I say, because it has some kind of aromatic size, maybe poivre de Sichuan pepper. I'll also add to this. Okay, now it's gonna be again a very long video, but it's Springbank. How can I expedite Springbank in 10 minutes? I can't. Just a few more drops in there because the ABV is higher. Yeah, it's the whiskey requires time. Remember that. And it's for me the only thing that really, maybe with the ceremony of tea, that can slow down time. I'm sorry, but I think at this point it will be no spoiler to tell you, my friends, that this is the winner of the two, by far. Yeah, no doubt. So I'm a bit disappointed of that the HAZELBURN purchase. I tried the long row Gaja, and I was a bit disappointed. But it was in a show, but it wasn't appealing to me with more smoke, so I didn't bought it. Otherwise, it would be interesting to have the 3. But honestly, for me, this one is the one to have. So with a few drops. More herbs and more spices comes across now, but might be influenced by the other one. So take with high reservation. While I tried this one completely separately and those notes didn't come across. So I'm gonna stop the tasting now for this one. Unfortunately, and come back to this one, which I very moderately recommend, to be honest. Gonna pause a second to find out the score, which will be under reservation, but of the Springbank, and I'll be back. Okay, got it. We'll tell you this after I finish the tasting. Now on to the HAZELBURN with water. Why do I do this swirling in my mouth and almost whistling thing, which is made with wine usually, and will not many reviewers do, but for instance Chris Goodrum does a very loud one. It's because it helps oxygenate and move the whiskey in your palate, and you can find other things that show up more than if you just swallow it and just turn it one time. So that's why, if you wonder. Okay, this is more integrated. You're losing something of the maltiness and the typical Springbankness. It gets a bit more neutral, if I may say. It's not neutral, of course, but more melted. It's more interesting, but less typical. But it comes across more pleasantly than without water. Bear in mind, 57.9 versus 54.7. So well, there's some nice notes coming in on the back end and aftertaste, rétro-olfaction in French, which is hard to define, but it's typical HAZELBURN and half, let's say, typical Springbank. But the peat is missing at some point, and the strong maltiness as well. But it's still nice. I wonder now about scoring. I'm gonna lower it. Okay, just a second, bear with me. Okay, sorry to be interrupting and be long. Let me put those down here. Maybe make them a bit closer. Okay, so verdict, conclusion. I love the Springbank Barolo, 9 years old. This is the winner clearly of the fight, if there might be a fight. This is final scoring. Bear in mind, I go up to 100, and I have 9 criterias, 8 which are 0 to 10 rated, and 1 is 0 to 20. This is the one I couldn't discard. I would like to discard it, but it's too late after 4,000 or so tastings. It's a bit annoying. That makes it jump often very high, and let's say 4 to 6 points more than the usual trusted, I don't like to use this term, but let's say my favorite reviewers, which is Serge Valentin, Ruben from Whiskey Notes, mostly blogs, I'm sorry. So 95, yes, 95 out of 100 for the Springbank. So probably for other reviewers in the same league, let's say, but using a different system, probably 88 to 90. And 85.5 for the HAZELBURN, which is, considering the price, not so bad, but if I had, because I tasted it only once and way back and I didn't remember, if I had the try before you buy, I wouldn't have bought it, to be clear. I would have chosen even a 10 years old Springbank instead, or of course a 12 years old cask strength. So there you have it, 50 minutes, very long, but it is typical Greg's review. So I will do these at some other points. Beautiful Longrow, 18 years old, 13 years old green, if you wonder, 17 years old sherry wood, beautiful Springbank, 11 years old Rundlets and Kildekins, and 100 proof, 10 years old from the early 2000s, sorry. We have there 15, 12 cask strength closed, and a 10, and there are others. Thank you for watching. If you like this, please click the like button, thumbs up, the notification bell to be aware of other videos, share it on social media if you like, and leave a comment. It helps, all this helps the channel and the videos to be more easily referenced, because this is also a channel who hasn't any financial support, so it's only me, and I have to admit I buy bottles to review them for the videos, but I don't do Patreon. Why I don't do Patreon? I wanted to say that because I know if you're Patreon, you have to have something in return, and often it's other videos, and I cannot guarantee I can do more videos. I cannot do coins as well. It has a cost, and now to send everything in UK is a total mess. I am actually completely I cannot send other samples before the new year, because the cost already of some samples, and mostly bottles I had to send in UK, is absolutely terrible. It's almost the price of the bottle. So it is not worth, unless I have a fund that have something in return. So I hadn't found a system already. I'm thinking of it, to give to some of you more a better experience and samples and stuff like that. But for now I have to stop or delay, at least delay what I have to send. But I'm making the video longer, so I stop. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye bye.